Welcome, everyone, to the MMA Happy Hour podcast. I am Kyle Anthony, your host for today. We are talking UFC Vegas 110, headlined by Steve Garcia and David Onama. We're going to be breaking down 4 plays here on the show today. Now, listen, last weekend at UFC 321, it was the most units I placed on one event, and boy, it worked out for clients. We're able to cash all 6 bets that we did have. Ended up cashing for clients 14.5 units on the night. And then on top of that, we ended up hitting the hero parlay. That's 3 out of the last 3 weeks. We hit the hero parlay 2 times. Really nice overall. And over the last 5 events, we've profited nearly 30 units for clients. Got about 6 events left here in 2025. So we got to finish strong, got to stay focused. And this weekend, if you want to become a client, link down in the description. I do have a 4-unit money line play that I absolutely do love. Check it out. Again, we'll be adding to that as we get closer to fight day on Saturday. We'll start at 4 p.m. I kind of like those little earlier start times there. But with that being said, let's dive into the main event of the evening between Steve Garcia and David Onama. Now, you got Steve Garcia sitting around -130. And the comeback here, we've got David Onama plus 110. Now, this is a great main event. I think this is going to be a fun one. Going to have a lot of fireworks here. Both these guys are going to be swinging, banging, looking for finishes, and I think it's going to be very exciting. Now, you got Onama here, who is really an explosive kickboxer. I mean, this guy will come forward. He's going to throw big shots. He can mix it up, and he has been a finisher over his career primarily. 14 victories, 11 do come inside the distance, and the one thing that he's done, which I think has definitely helped his game overall, is getting a little more well-rounded. He's added wrestling to his game. Against Giga Chikadze was a fight where Giga, high-level kickboxer, and he was able to fight smart. And he was able to go out there, look for takedowns, and was able to secure 3 takedowns. And that primarily was the difference there for him to get the job done here. And I do think that is really helping round out his skill set. Now, you've got Steve Garcia on the other side here, 6-fight win streak, 5 do come by knockout here. And this is a guy who's going to look to move forward, trade in the pocket, take one to give one kind of mentality. And, he can look a little unorthodox at times, but he has been able to be a guy that when he lands clean, guys go down, and he's going to push at really high striking pace. He's going to stay forward, push forward, and really look to, lean on that boxing that he does have. Now, the red flag here on the Onama side really is the fact that, he doesn't like pressure, and it just seems like he's a better hammer, not a good nail here. And he's the kind of guy that, wants to be able to dictate the pace, wants to be able to have the space when he wants to have it, utilize his high level striking. And then he wants to be the guy to kind of, hey, I'm going to start to level change now and mix it up and really be able to pressure and move forward. That's going to be very difficult, in my opinion, here against someone like Steve Garcia here. Now, the first part being the fact that I think that, him being uncomfortable off of his back foot, as in David Onama, him being uncomfortable with his back foot, I think that's going to be tougher for him to look for takedowns, off of your back foot when you're getting pressured, having these big bombs being thrown at you here. And I think that's going to be very tough really for Onama. And both these guys at times can be hittable. So there is that's going to be, in play where both these guys can be rocked and wobbled, and they have been able to come back and find success. So I think that's going to be interesting. But I do think that Garcia is going to force those exchanges very close. I think he's going to be able to, withstand some of these takedowns, and he's going to be able to find big shots. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does find that knockout and consistently add to this knockout run that he's having here, where Onama, he is on a 4-fight winning streak. And I do think that, he has edged out some of these, and it wasn't as great of a performance when I go back and really we watch these fights. The Giga Chikadze fight, very close. Again, he needed those 3 takedowns in order to, really lock in that victory. The Jonathan Pierce fight, it was even on significant strikes, like 58-57. Pierce had 5 takedowns with over 5 minutes of control time, yet he didn't get the victory. Obviously, it was a close fight, but it really wasn't this stamp where I think Onama really should have done to Pierce in that spot. And another spot here that I thought was a little bit eye-opening was his fight against Roberto Romero. Now, Romero is a regional fighter to put it lightly. And he went out there, dropped Onama, hurt him, almost had an opportunity to find a finish. And yes, Onama came back and got the victory, but I thought really wasn't the greatest performance for him overall. And I just think this is a spot where Garcia is going to outpace him. He's going to have that pressure. He's going to be landing those big shots. I don't think Onama is going to be able to really deal with that throughout this fight, however long it goes. And I think overall, Garcia is going to land the more damaging, more impactful shots. And I think he does find the knockout here, but I believe at -130, I like this spot. So I'm going Steve Garcia to get the job done in the main event, -130. Now, the next one here we're going to talk about is going to be Themba Gorimbo. He is -140 on the comeback here. We've got Jeremiah Wells +115. Now, before we get into this, quick shout out to our sponsor, Caesars Sportsbook. For new users, if you use promo code Mr. UFC 20X, MRUFC20X at checkout, what you're able to get is you bet $1 or more, you get $25 profit boosts. All you got to do is just bet $1. You get it instantly. I think it's a great opportunity, and check it out. Link down below. And now let's dive into the next one here. Now, you got Themba Gorimbo here. He is -140. And the thing you look about Themba is he's primarily a wrestler, right? We know what we're getting out of this guy. He's going to shoot. He's going to shoot. He's going to look for takedowns. He's going to look for that top time. Out of the last 3 fights, he's landed 12 takedowns on 15 attempts. So he's been able to find success there, bank the rounds, get that control time, and it has worked out for him. Now, Wells on the other side here, I do believe that his skill set can nullify some of the things that Gorimbo does well. And it's that wrestling, really that primary path that he does have. Now, Jeremiah, yes, we've seen him taken down, but overall, though, he pretty much has, decent takedown defense, 80% overall. And then you look at also the strength and physicality. I think the advantages are there for him as well, where I think that he's going to be able to, create the space, muscle out of certain spots. And the other part here is that I think he's by far the more athletic fighter between these two. And I think he's going to find success offensive wrestling. I think he's going to be able to move forward, crash the pocket, as we've seen Wells multiple times, crash the pocket. Sometimes he's going to be a little wild, but he is a very explosive guy. He's very fast. And I think he finds success there looking to crash that pocket. And also, you got to add in here the striking here. I think it's a wide gap between these two guys. You're talking about the striking here. I think that he's overall has the more explosive power. He's the better striker. And also, we've seen Themba strike. And it's very basic. I think it's slow. Primarily he's using it just to kind of get his hands on you, throw these 1-2 combinations, look to dive at legs. I think his takedowns sometimes are fairly sloppy and not very clean overall. And the more dangerous fighter between these two guys is absolutely Wells. Wells, I think, can find a finish on the ground. He's got good jiu-jitsu. He's got the power in his hands. I think he's the better striker on top of all of that. And I don't think he's going to worry about anything that's coming his way from Themba on the feet. I don't think he's worried about it. I think he can freely move forward. He can freely find opportunities to land these big shots. And I do think that Wells finds the success. And also, I think a very bad look for Themba was his most recent loss to Vicente Luque, which was a fight where he was dropped in the first strike landed from Vicente. He fell to the ground. He was able to latch in a submission, got the finish within the first minute. I thought it was just a terrible showing there for Themba. And, the last time that even Luque even found a finish was back in 2021 against Michael Chiesa. So now you're about to face a guy in Wells who's a hard hitter, who can give you pressure, who can look for takedowns on his own and be offensive on his takedowns. And I think that really spells a lot of problems for him. And the other thing here is that you got to add in is that, I think the biggest win that if you can say that, the biggest win for Themba is the win over Brahimaj. Now that has aged well, as much as, hey, he's on I believe a 3-fight win streak. He had a nice finish, in his recent win. He has definitely looked a little bit rejuvenated, but that's the thing. He's rejuvenated. The last time or the time that they fought, that was Brahimaj after a 2-year layoff. And he was just a shell of himself. And people always thought Brahimaj could be something. He has started to look like that now. Explosive, have some strength, put the striking together with his grappling. I just think this is a spot here that Themba's going to struggle. Themba's not going to find as many takedowns throughout this 3-rounder. I think Wells is the more dangerous fighter, has the finishing upside. So me in this spot here, I do like Jeremiah Wells at that plus money. Give me Jeremiah Wells plus 115. Now, the next one here we're going to talk about is going to be Timmy Cuamba minus 120 on the comeback. We have Chang Ho Lee at plus 100. Now, you've got Cuamba here, who is, well-rounded guy. He's got some boxing. We know that's definitely his background there. He's got some quick developing combinations, and he's going to be the more polished striker really between these two guys. There's no doubt about it overall. And he has been able to mix in takedowns. So he's going to have that boxing he can lean on. And then also, if he needs to, he can look for those takedowns. But the issue here for me on the Cuamba side is the first thing being the fact that, it's the first time in his career he's moving down to 135 pounds. And that's always a little bit of a red flag. You always kind of take a look at that because, he wasn't the biggest 145er, but now he's got to cut an extra 10 pounds. And that could be taxing. And that's something that, depending how that cut goes, it depends on really, what level he'll be at. It could be taxing his cardio, could be taxing his durability, and that's something that I think can be interesting when this plays out. Plus, he's 1-2 in the UFC, and he's seeking a fresh start. And a lot of times I hate that. I hate seeing guys that, they're trying to escape the demons from another division, whether they're moving up or down. At times, especially a kid who's so young that, he's already looking to change things up. Maybe, he's thinking, hey, this is going to be better suited for me. Maybe I'll be bigger compared to these guys. And trying to use size bully a little bit. I don't think it's the greatest thing for him at this particular point here. I don't like seeing these kind of changes, especially when you're losing. Maybe you're winning. Hey, I want to change. But when you're losing and you're trying to have more things, change at camp, now you really got to worry about the weight cut here. I think that's a lot more to worry about, where Chang Ho Lee on the other side here, stylistically, I think he's got advantages here. And the first one being the fact that, Cuamba likes to fight off the back foot. He's a guy that wants to utilize that boxing. You throw combinations. He looks to throw that quick 1-2. He's got some clean striking, as we were just talking about. Wants to be in space, utilize his range overall. And that's really where I think that, Chang can dictate the pace a little bit, look for takedowns. He's a very, very aggressive fighter. And I don't think he's going to give Cuamba, the respect of just, hey, let's work at range. This guy comes forward, throwing, looking for takedowns, looking to be aggressive. This is going to be in the apex cage, obviously the smaller cage here. I do think that does help Chang here, where he can cage push, look to push him up against the fence, get control time a little bit there, look for takedowns. And, also you've got to add in that Chang is the guy that is going to push a high pace. So you add in now that, hey, this is a guy who's going to have that wrestling pace, who's going to stay in your face, who's going to keep you working. And that also now, when he's a guy that, we've seen that he can weaponize that cardio, he can push that pace. And that also now plays into this weight cut that Cuamba is going to have to go through, and again, could that be, could that hurt him? Could that be tough for him? We're going to see. But I do think that Chang can weaponize that cardio, can weaponize his opportunity to look for these takedowns, look for control time here. And I just don't think Cuamba is going to have the ability to really work in space and land those big shots that we've seen him do in certain spots. And, Chang overall, I think that he can, win positionally here. He can dictate the pace. He can look for those takedowns, bank the rounds here. And he's got that cardio that he can go out there and really find that victory and bank some rounds or find a finish here. So I do like Chang Ho Lee in this spot here. I'm going to take in Chang Ho Lee at plus 100. And the last one here we're going to be talking about is going to be Charles Radtke. He is minus 155 on the comeback here. We have Daniel Frunza. He is plus 130. Now, this is another one that's going to be absolutely a banger. I mean, this is one where both these guys are going to be like coming forward. They're both going to be throwing. I think there's not going to be as much defense, I think, on both of these guys' sides here. Now, you got Frunza, who is primarily a kickboxer. We've seen this guy. He's going out there. He's got some range. He won on Dana White's Contender Series. And his debut in the UFC, I don't think could have went any worse for him, as a showing for him overall. He goes out there against Rice McKee, and McKee goes out there and drops him 3 times in the first round, the first 5 minutes, and absolutely, it looked like at the end of that round, it looked like Frunza had been jumped. I mean, it looked like five guys were punching him because he was swollen, beat up, he was damaged badly, and they had to have a doctor stoppage at the end of that first round. And it's just a bad look. I mean, it was just a really bad look because Rice McKee is, McKee's not doing that to anybody, especially in UFC. He is not doing that to anybody, especially dropping them multiple times. That really opens up, questions about this guy's chin, questions about this guy's durability. I think he's a tough guy because he still wanted to fight when he was getting his butt kicked in. But I don't think that that's going to really work out here really well against Charles Radtke. And Radtke is a guy who has big power in his hands. He's a brawler. He's going to come forward. He's going to look to throw big shots. The last two wins that he has do come by knockout. He's our guy that's going to be aggressive. He's going to stay in Frunza's face. Frunza's the guy, again, that, may want to have some rangy striking. I don't think that's how, Radtke's going to be playing this. I don't think he's going to look for a rangy kickboxing match. He's going to look to be in boxing range, crash the pocket. Again, smaller cage. I think it's going to struggle for Frunza to really find that range overall. You've got a guy in Radtke who's going to hunt for those finishes, swing really hard. I think that's going to melt a guy like Frunza who just got, absolutely beat up in his last fight. And not only can Frunza, get dropped, but he can be taken down and he can be controlled. It's a clear advantage here for Radtke. The takedowns, the wrestling, the grappling, it all favors him there. So even if, maybe the striking isn't going as well for Radtke, he can mix it up, look for takedowns, and it's a clear vulnerability on the Frunza side where we've seen regionally, you go back regional tape, this guy has been taken down. He has been controlled in certain spots. And I think Radtke has some strength. He can look for those takedowns. And I do think that he's going to have the ability to mix it up a lot better, throw these big overhands, throw big power, look for takedowns if he really needs to be smart here and do that. And I think this is a spot where Charles Radtke does need a win in the UFC. So I think that Frunza is very hittable on the feet. I think that he can be taken down. He can be controlled. And I do think that Radtke is going to find this victory. So I'm going Charles Radtke to get the job done. So there you have it for my plays for UFC Vegas 110. If you want to become a client, link down in the description. Again, a 4-unit play right now I do have up. I will be adding to that as we get closer to fight night. And as well as, don't forget our Caesars Sportsbook promotion. Link and explanation on the promotion down below. So let's keep this rolling. We got about 6 events left in 2025. We've got a big pay-per-view coming up. So we've got a lot of great things coming up here to finish strong. So let's get the job done this weekend. I'll see you next weekend, and let's cash.